Bunk here from quarantine today to talk to you about a performance I did on an instrument called a styrofoamophone. In the image here, which is a still from a video I'm going to present after I give these introductory remarks. This is a picture of me performing on my styrofoamophone. Before I get into the instrument, let me just talk a little bit about the event that occurred when I did this performance. It was a couple of years ago. There's a club in Cambridge. It's called Club Oberon, and they do a lot of musical theater there. They do some straight ahead theater and kind of cabaret. They have food, they have drinks, so it's a little less formal than a concert hall. And the event was hosted by a group in Boston that does a lot of experimental music, and they're having a fundraiser, and so they had an evening of events of different people performing different experimental music, and I was invited to be a part of that. My instrument, the styrofoamophone, as you can see here, is made of a giant piece of white styrofoam, and attached to it I have a piece of cardboard here. There's a little piece of metal up here at the top, bits and pieces of paper clips and other kinds of things that you could stick right into the styrofoam. We have some rubber bands down here. I'll show you a different video of me playing those, or an example from this video of me playing those. And a few other things here and there. And the idea of the instrument is that you resonate different sounds through the styrofoam, and then they are amplified and played into the performance hall. In this case, I'm using what's called a contact microphone. And the contact microphone is right here. It attaches directly to the styrofoam, so it doesn't pick up sounds in the air, but it picks up sounds resonated through the object itself, the styrofoam. And then that just goes into a standard amplifier and is amplified through the room. So the way I perform it is mostly using a bow. Now this is a bow that you would use probably on a cello, maybe a viola, and bows are incredibly versatile and expressive musical instruments. And they're used for strings, but they can also be used in various percussion situations, and that's where I kind of get the idea here, is by the bow itself resonating the styrofoam or whatever is being played, and then those sound vibrations go through the contact mic. Now to get a little bit of a closer up look at a contact mic, here is a picture of the one that I'm currently using right now. It's designed as to be attached to a piano, so you get a full frequency spectrum of sounds. And this right here is maybe a couple of inches long. It attaches directly to either the piano soundboard or whatever you're amplifying, in my case, a piece of styrofoam. And then you can see here's the plug that goes into the back of this, and then this Barkus Berry box here would get connected into a mixer. So let me play you a couple of short clips from this video and talk a little bit through them. This first one here is towards the beginning of the performance, and I am getting ready to start performing on the top part of the instrument right here. Let me play about 15 seconds of it. You can see what I'm doing is I'm drawing the bow across this piece of cardboard, and then the sound waves from the cardboard are then resonating through the styrofoam, being picked up by the contact mic, and then following through the signal flow into the mixer, into the amplifiers in the room. Now this type of technique is a very light touch on the bow, and a kind of irregular, fastish bowing. And it creates this sort of jittery, squeaking sound. Now I have a whole vocabulary of different sounds that I've developed and am continuing to develop on this particular instrument. And this one right here takes into account the speed of the bow, the pressure of the bow, the place in which the bow is resonating, in this case on the piece of cardboard right here, and the sort of method in the way that I am performing. What I mean by that is that I'm playing the bow somewhat irregularly. I'm not playing a regular rhythm, but I'm playing an irregular rhythm. In this next example, I go down towards the middle of the styrofoam and play a little bit more harshly. Now here you can see some of the way I'm playing is different. I'm playing in a different part of the instrument. I'm applying a lot of pressure with the bow, yet the bow in this case I'm moving very, very slowly, and that's what's kind of creating this this kind of sound. And it's kind of a popping and a crackling that's a little bit irregular, but I can control also with the way I use the bow how regular or how irregular that popping is. And of course, by the pressure, the more pressure I put on it, the sound changes. The less pressure I put on it, the sound changes. And so these are the main things I'm playing around with this instrument, is the speed of the bow, the pressure of the bow, the location of the bow, the rhythm or method in the way that I am bowing. And in this case, actually, the instrument itself is degrading a little bit as I play through it. Incidentally, I've had this piece of styrofoam for at least 7 or 8 years and have performed dozens of performances like this on this piece of styrofoam. The third video I have here is towards the middle end of the performance, where I put the bow down and start to play in the middle of the instrument. You can see there's some elastic bands here as well that I'll be performing with. So take a look at this. So this part of the performance is actually fairly quiet, and you might not even be able to hear in this demo of what's going on there, but there are these very light, wispy, brushy kinds of sounds that I'm able to control the different timbres of these sounds through how fast I'm moving my hands, how much pressure I'm putting on with my hands, as well as doing 1 or 2 at the same time, 3 at the same time, slower, faster, all of these different kinds of performative acts to change the timbre and quality of the sound that I'm creating. Let me just take a minute and talk about the nature of this music making. First of all, it's largely improvised. I've done well over 100 of performances like this in the last 10 years on this and other instruments, and have developed like I was saying, a vocabulary of sounds that I like and ways in which to produce those sounds. So a way to formalize these sounds, I've begun to develop a character-based notation for each sound that I make. And let me just show you an example of it. So right here, I'll open up this whole thing so you can see, is a document that shows the various kinds of characters that I'm working with, and these are the first 24 of them. Now these characters themselves indicate a lot of things for me as to how a sound is created. Say this one right here, RB, which is for rubber bands, circle, bow, is I give it a name, and then the symbols in there let me know where to play. Like right here, it's these 3 lines mean play on the rubber bands, and the circle means to bow in a circular fashion across them. Now these 2 lines right here indicate, the horizontal indicates the speed, and the vertical indicates the bow pressure. So this says very slow, with very little pressure. Now this down here, this little symbol right here means intermittent. And so anything that's attached to the intermittent symbol will happen occasionally while the sound is being made. And so what this means is occasionally, intermittently, have your speed be about halfway between slow and fast. And so the combination of all these three symbols then add up to the sound that I'm calling RB circle bow. Now, my goal with this is to eventually come up with at least 100 of these. I have 24 so far, and to reuse and to integrate symbols across the different characters. So, for example, you can see this right here is the same as this, except it's not with, this is your speed. So this says not the slowest speed, but a pretty slow speed. And then that's the same thing right here. This is a medium speed, but occasionally randomize it within that range. And then you could see some symbols are unique to the character and other symbols are shared amongst many of the characters. And then when I put a performance together, sometimes I will sequence these characters in a certain way, or just put them on a page and say, I want to get to these 5 characters in this 15-minute improv at some point. And so then that particular improvisation becomes about those particular characters. Or sometimes it's just for practice. I practice these like a jazz player might practice scales, but then when a jazz performer performs, she's not just playing scales, she's thinking about her scales, but is using those scales to create improvisations. All right, without further ado, let me present to you the video from the Oberon performance. And thank you for your time listening to my talk here, and I hope that everyone is doing well, and I look forward to seeing people in person sometime soon. Thank you.
Thank you.